So you were born too aware. You've probably spent your entire life being told that you overthink everything, that you need to just relax and go with the flow, that you're making things harder than they need to be. But what if I told you that your so-called overthinking isn't a flaw at all? What if the real problem is that you were born with a level of awareness that most people will never experience? And while that sounds like a superpower, the psychology behind it reveals something far more complex and often darker than you might think. Today, we're going to explore what I call the clarity tax, the psychological price you pay for seeing the world in high definition while everyone else lives comfortably in 240p. We'll look at the neuroscience that explains why your mind works differently, why this awareness can feel like a curse, and most importantly, how to transform this trait from a burden into the precision instrument it was always meant to be. To understand yourself, we need to start with a fundamental truth about human consciousness. Most people navigate life on autopilot. Psychologists call this the default mode. They wake up, follow routines, respond to stimuli, and rarely question the underlying patterns of their existence. It's not that they're unintelligent. It's that their brain has learned to filter out unnecessary complexity to conserve energy. They see the world in shortcuts. But your brain doesn't do this. You were born with what neuroscientists call heightened metacognition. This is the ability to think about thinking itself. While others are simply having thoughts, you are watching yourself have thoughts. You're analyzing why you had that thought, what triggered it, what it means about you, and what it says about the world around you. This creates what I call the awareness paradox. The more conscious you become of how things work, the systems, the patterns, the invisible rules that govern human behavior, the harder it becomes to simply exist within those systems without questioning them. You start to see the scaffolding behind reality, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like learning how a magic trick works. The show doesn't stop, but you can never watch it the same way again. This is why you might feel like you're watching your own life from the outside. It's why social interactions that seem effortless for others require you to manually process every step. You're not just participating in the conversation, you're simultaneously analyzing the subtext, reading the micro-expressions, predicting how your words will land, and adjusting in real time. It's exhausting because you're running two programs at once, living and observing. This hyper-awareness comes with three distinct psychological shadows that most people never talk about. Understanding these will help you recognize why this trait feels so heavy. The first shadow is existential isolation. When you see patterns that others don't see, when you question assumptions that others accept without thought, you begin to realize something unsettling. You are fundamentally alone in your perception of reality. Even when surrounded by people, there's a glass wall between you and them. They're experiencing life on one frequency, and you're tuned to another. You can hear their station, but they can't hear yours. This isn't arrogance. This is the loneliness of the sentinel. You're standing on a watchtower seeing approaching storms, and everyone else is having a picnic. You want to warn them, but they look at you like you're paranoid. Over time, you learn to stay quiet. You learn to smile and nod. And that silence, that constant translation of your thoughts into something more palatable, that's the isolation. The second shadow is decision paralysis. Most people make choices based on feeling or social proof. If it feels right, or if everyone else is doing it, that's good enough. But you can't do that. Your awareness means you see not just the immediate consequences of a choice, but the branching tree of second-order and third-order effects. You see how choosing A affects B, which influences C, which might circle back to undermine A 3 years from now. Picture this. You're at a party and someone asks for your phone number. A simple yes or no, right? But your brain is already running simulations. If I say yes, we'll text. If we text, I'll need to maintain that connection. If I maintain it, they might expect more availability than I can give. If I can't give it, they'll feel rejected. If they feel rejected, I'll feel guilty. If I feel guilty, I'll overcompensate. And suddenly, a phone number isn't just a phone number. It's a 12-step consequence chain that ends with you exhausted and them confused. While others leap, you calculate. And sometimes, by the time you finish calculating, the opportunity has passed. This is the curse of foresight. The third shadow is meaning fatigue. Because you're always asking why, always searching for deeper significance, you eventually hit a wall that philosophers have written about for millennia. When you pull back enough layers, when you question enough assumptions, you sometimes arrive at a terrifying conclusion. Maybe there is no inherent meaning. Maybe the systems, the rules, the structures that everyone else accepts without question are just collective agreements, useful fictions we tell ourselves to keep functioning. This realization can be destabilizing. If you see through the illusion, if you recognize that meaning is constructed rather than discovered, then what are you supposed to do? You can't unknow this. You can't go back to innocent participation. This is the burden of the aware. You must choose to create meaning, even while knowing it's a choice. That requires a level of existential courage that most people never have to summon. Now let's talk about the hardware that's creating this experience. Because this isn't just philosophical, it's neurological. Research in cognitive neuroscience shows that people with high levels of awareness have increased activity in the prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex. These are the regions responsible for executive function, self-monitoring, and error detection. Essentially, your brain has a hyperactive quality control department. It's constantly scanning for inconsistencies, threats, and problems that need solving. But here's where it gets interesting. This same neural architecture is also associated with what psychologists call high-trait anxiety. Your brain's threat detection system is more sensitive. It picks up on dangers, both real and potential, that other people's brains simply ignore as noise. This means that your awareness and your anxiety are not separate problems. They're two sides of the same coin. You're anxious because you're aware, and you're aware because your brain is wired to be vigilant. In evolutionary terms, you would have been the person in the tribe who noticed the predator in the grass, who sensed when the weather was about to turn, who questioned whether that neighboring tribe could really be trusted. Here's the twist that nobody tells you. In ancient times, this trait kept the tribe alive, but it also meant you probably didn't sleep well. You weren't the most relaxed person around the campfire. You were the one staring into the darkness while everyone else joked and laughed. And that's okay, because when the threat came, you were ready. The price of being the early warning system is that you're always partially on duty. Your ancestors survived because of this trait. But in the modern world, there are no more predators in the grass. There are only abstract threats, career uncertainty, relationship dynamics, existential questions, and your brain applies the same level of vigilance to these as it would to a physical danger. This is why your mind never seems to rest. So how do you live with this? How do you transform awareness from a curse into something useful? The first step is acceptance, not resignation, but acceptance. You need to stop fighting your own wiring. Stop believing that you should be more carefree, more spontaneous, more like everyone else. You can't be. And honestly, the world needs people like you. But you must accept the operating costs of your particular model of consciousness. This means building your life around your awareness, not against it. If you need time alone to process, that's not antisocial. That's maintenance. If you need to think through decisions thoroughly, that's not weakness. That's how your system runs. Stop apologizing for your needs. The second step is selective ignorance. This sounds contradictory, but hear me out. Just because you can see everything doesn't mean you need to engage with everything. One of the most powerful skills you can develop is the ability to consciously choose which layers to examine and which to accept at face value. Think of your awareness like a microscope with infinite magnification. Yes, you can zoom in on every pixel of every interaction, every decision, every existential question. You can examine the bacteria on the bacteria, but doing so constantly will paralyze you. Instead, you need to develop what I call selective resolution. Here's what this looks like in practice. You're having coffee with a friend and they say something that doesn't quite add up. Old you would spiral. Why did they phrase it that way? What are they hiding? What does this mean about our friendship? New you notices the inconsistency, files it away, and continues the conversation at surface level. You're not being naive. You're consciously deciding that this particular thread, right now, doesn't need to be pulled. You're saving your processing power for things that actually matter. This isn't dumbing yourself down. This is strategic deployment of your awareness. You're choosing your battles. The third step is finding your fellow sentinels. Because here's the truth, you're not actually alone. There are others who operate on your frequency. They're just as quiet as you are, just as tired of explaining themselves. But when you find them, something extraordinary happens. You'll know them when you meet them. They're the ones who pause before answering simple questions. The ones who laugh at jokes 3 layers deep that everyone else missed. The ones who, when you say something observant about human nature, don't look at you like you're weird. They look at you like they've been waiting their whole life for someone to say it out loud. With these people, you don't have to translate. You don't have to simplify. You can say, have you noticed how people perform happiness in grocery stores? And instead of confusion, you get, oh my God, yes. And the way they modulate their voice when talking to cashiers versus when they're alone in the aisle. These relationships are rare, but they're essential. One conversation with someone who truly gets it can sustain you through months of surface-level interaction with everyone else. Don't waste energy trying to force depth with people who aren't equipped for it. Save that energy for the few who are. The final step is purpose. This is the antidote to meaning fatigue. Yes, you can see through the constructed nature of meaning. Yes, you recognize that the systems are arbitrary, but that doesn't make them meaningless. It makes you responsible for choosing which meanings to uphold. The aware person's burden is also their freedom. You get to decide what matters. Not because society told you, not because you inherited the belief, but because you examined it, tested it, and chose it. That's a different kind of meaning. It's more fragile, perhaps, but it's also more authentic. Let me tell you something that nobody else will. Being born to aware isn't a superpower, and it isn't a flaw. It's a responsibility. You didn't ask for this level of consciousness, but you have it, and with it comes a choice. You can spend your life resenting your own mind, wishing you could be simpler, trying to numb the awareness with distractions and substances, and endless scrolling. Many people do. Or you can accept that you were built to see what others miss. Not so you can feel superior, but so you can contribute something that only you can offer. The world needs people who question, who see patterns, who refuse to accept comfortable lies. But it also needs those people to stay functional, to not disappear into their own heads, to find a way to translate their insights into something useful. That's the real challenge. Not just to be aware, but to be aware and still engaged, to see the scaffolding and still appreciate the building, to know that meaning is chosen and still choose it with conviction. So the next time someone tells you to stop overthinking, to just relax and go with the flow, you can smile and nod, but internally, you can remember the truth. You're not broken, you're just playing a different game with a different set of rules. And once you learn those rules, once you stop trying to be something you're not, that's when your awareness stops being a burden and becomes exactly what it was always meant to be. A way of seeing that changes everything. I hope enough was said, and enough thanks you for being here. See you in the next one.